Hello and welcome to Historia Romana. Episode 7. The Abduction of the Sabine Women. With the government established and an army prepared, Romulus could now get to the grubby business of ruling over his new city. To his consternation, however, he discovered a serious problem. The population of Rome had exploded over the course of its first few years, but almost all the new arrivals were male. Romulus knew that the flood of immigration would not last forever, and without enough women to produce more children, Rome would suffer population collapse after the first generation and doom the whole project. Thus, Romulus's main objective became trying to acquire more women for Rome by any means necessary. On the advice of the Senate, he first attempted diplomacy with the neighboring villages, trying to acquire marriage rights between their peoples. Intermarriage between the Romans and the other settlements would not only provide women for Rome, but also foster goodwill and cooperation between the cities. However, all of his attempts were met with stiff resistance. The leaders of the nearby settlements had heard about the types of people who were migrating to Rome, and they were wary of forging any alliances with a village that was perceived as being populated by criminals and other lowlives, and which was quickly amassing a large potential army. They did not want to strengthen Rome by providing them with women who could bear Roman children, thereby ensuring the longevity of the Roman population. Romulus, frustrated by the rebuffed attempts at negotiation, decided to explore more drastic options. Once again, on the advice of his grandfather Numitor, Romulus made a solemn vow to Consus, a deity associated with secret councils, promising annual sacrifices and festivals if his plan succeeded, and then privately presented his proposal to the Senate. Upon gaining their approval, albeit reluctantly, Romulus then publicly declared his intention to hold a grand festival in honor of the sea god Neptune and sent invitations to the nearby cities. The date for this event is uncertain. Sources like the Fasti Triumphales, an Augustan monument which tracked Roman military victories, imply this occurred within the first year of Rome's consecration, late 753, early 752, but other sources like Gnaeus Gellius argued it was at least a few years into Romulus's reign, around 749, which seems more plausible, as it is unlikely that the leader of a newly established city would embark on such a large endeavor without first ensuring a stable government and large army. Many families from other settlements arrived to partake in the festival, including both fellow Latins and neighboring Sabines to the northeast. Regarded as much more warlike than the Latins, the Sabines claimed their name from Sabus, an exile from the Greek city of Sparta, and who they believed to be the son of Sancus, a local Sabine deity that later Romans associated with Jupiter. If true, this would make them a relatively young tribe by the time of Romulus. However, most modern historians believe this was nothing more than legend, and the Sabines were likely just one of the many Umbrian-speaking tribes who had settled in central Italy, not too distantly related from the Latins. Romulus commenced the festivities by offering sacrifices to Neptune and organizing the contests, involving foot and horse races and various shows of strength. On the final day, as the gathered assembly was about to disperse, Romulus gave a prearranged signal, and the young Roman men began to forcibly seize the virgins who had come to witness the spectacle. Chaos erupted, with the remaining foreigners fleeing from the city, decrying the treacherous Romans. The following day, when the terrified virgins were brought before Romulus, he assured them that their capture was not an act of senseless aggression, but a means to arrange marriages. Upon counting up a total of 683 captive women, primarily of Sabine origin, Romulus selected an equal number of unmarried Roman men and had them married according to the women's country's customs. He urged the virgins to embrace their new husbands, and if we are to go by the ancient sources, it does not appear that there was any serious resistance among the women. Nevertheless, the women's fathers, brothers, and prospective husbands back home were not just going to take these abductions lying down. Specifically, the Latin settlements of Canina, Antemnae, and Crustumerium, all to the north of Rome, quickly declared war on the upstart city. They also urged the neighboring Sabines to join them, but they chose to hold back, at least for the moment. While the Latin army, when combined, greatly outnumbered the Romans, Their leaders were evidently not very disciplined or strategic-minded. When the army of Caenina set out ahead of the others to loot the Roman countryside, Romulus recognized an opportunity. Assembling his own army, he launched a surprise attack on the unprepared enemy, capturing their camp. Swiftly pursuing those who fled back to their city, Romulus found the walls unguarded and the gates unbolted. With a fierce assault, he took the town by storm. Acron, the king of the Canaanenses, confronted Romulus in the midst of the chaos. Romulus personally slew the king and stripped him of his armor. After commanding the prisoners to surrender their weapons and selecting certain women and children as hostages, Romulus returned to Rome to celebrate his victory, in possibly a forerunner of what would become known as the Triumph, and then constructed a small temple on the Saturnine Hill to Jupiter, where Romulus dedicated the war spoils he had obtained. This was the first instance of the Spolia Opima, a religious ritual where the spoils of the enemy commander would be dedicated to the temple of the sky god, acknowledging his supremacy encompassing all things. Later that same year, Romulus then proceeded to march against Antemnae. Employing the same strategy as before, he caught them off guard while they were scattered during foraging and defeated their army, and eventually captured their city. Treating the prisoners in a similar fashion, he led his experienced troops back home and celebrated another victory procession. This left only Crustumerium, who we are told proved to be a more formidable foe and took longer to conquer, but was eventually forced to bend the knee to Rome. With their settlements now under Roman control, the inhabitants feared what would happen to their land and their rights. Romulus called the prisoners and hostages to assemble at the foot of the Palatine and asserted that while the Romans had the right to inflict every severity upon the defeated cities for refusing their initial overtures of friendship, they would instead be merciful to atone for the sacrilege of kidnapping their women. Instead of sacking and pillaging, Rome would simply turn these independent Latin cities into Roman dependencies. The captive inhabitants of the three cities, likely happy that they weren't losing everything after such a spectacular Roman victory, voiced no objections. Romulus dispatched 300 Roman men to each city, who provided 1/3 of their land for the new settlers. News of the king's valor in warfare and his merciful treatment of the conquered spread across central Italy, resulting in many courageous men joining Romulus, bringing their families and substantial resources with them. One such leader was Lucumo, an Etruscan renowned for his military achievements, who brought with him a considerable contingent of mercenaries. Another was Hostus Hostilius from the Latin town of Medulia, who soon became one of Romulus's top lieutenants. Entire Latin settlements also submitted to Romulus, starting with Medulia, and became Roman colonies. In exchange for Roman overlordship and giving up some of their farmland for Roman settlers, Rome would now be obliged to protect them from outside threats. Ironically, it seems Romulus's desperate ploy to forcibly enlarge his population had led to many more settlers voluntarily flocking to his city. This didn't mean that Romulus had eliminated all of his enemies, far from it. The Sabines, having hung back from this first war, were still eager for revenge. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time.